Our foremost concern is protecting Jehovah's organization.
Good morning.
You did it to me again.
This is what happens when you're busy talking on the phone to Jane Doe. I get the rest of the coffee.
Yes, but then I get the hot chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. Now, first of all, I want to thank Atlantis, because the other day I had asked him, am I going crazy, or did we not hear years ago where they said they were not an organization of lawyers? And Atlantis, you are the best, because he found where it was, even though I had searched for hours. And it's like, oh, I never even thought about the Australia Royal Commission. Now, for those of you who are newly out or don't know about the Australian Royal Commission, back in 2014-2015, Australia did a commission investigating organizations that had a systemic problem of CSA. Jehovah's Witnesses were part of that. They were study number 29. And the 8 days of testimony that went on that was incredibly, it exposed Watchtower big time, and so many Jehovah's Witnesses woke up from that, and many of us, we were shocked at what was said. Now, what I'm going to do is, in my humble opinion, one of the most important testimonies was by Jeffrey Jackson of the governing body on day 8, and I'm going to put the link down below to that video, because thank you, Jake Control, because they have all of these hearing videos. And in this day 8, part 1 that he did, at about 25 minutes and 20 seconds, that is where it was said. And so I'm going to play the clip so you can hear exactly what he said.
Mr. Stewart, what you need to understand with regard to our organization is a faith-driven organization. This is not an organization of lawyers or those that are overly concerned with legal matters. So our primary allegiance is to Jehovah God. Now, the governing body realizes that if we were to give some direction that is not in harmony with God's word, all of Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide who have the Bible would notice that, and they would see that it was wrong direction.
Now, I don't know if you caught everything that was in there, but just that short little, 30-second clip, there's so much in there to dissect that we're going to be talking about this.
Maybe.
Maybe?
Well, there again, he projects that what's in the Bible, every Jehovah Witness should know this, but you don't. I'm going to prove the point right here. Now, for those of you that are not aware, as Jane Doe has been watching some podcasts with a bunch of religious nut jobs, including, what's that guy's name? God, it slips me. I can't think of his name. Well, it's unimportant right now. So anyhow, this scripture was read this morning by Dennis Prager. Okay? Now, I want you Jehovah's Witnesses to pay attention, because this is in your own Bible. You should know this. But see, Watchtower can easily distract from it because they've convinced you that they are the modern day God's chosen people. But if you take what I'm about to read and apply it back then, this scripture should only apply to the Israelites. Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 19, you can go up to 15 and read the context, but this is your God Jehovah speaking, okay? And that you may not rise your eyes, speaking of the Israelites, that you may not rise your eyes to the heavens and indeed see the sun, moon, and stars, all the army of the heaven, and actually get seduced and bow down to serve them, which Jehovah your God has apportioned to all the peoples under the whole heavens. You understand what your Bible is saying? Well, for more clearer reading from, the real Bible, King James Version.
Yes, he's being sarcastic.
Yes. And lest thou, once again, speaking to the Israelites, and lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them, and serve them which the Lord thine God hath divided into all the nations under the whole heaven. The point that Dennis Prager was bringing out, that God is allowing all the nations to worship the sun, the moon, the stars, everything. The only group of people that were not to do that were the Israelites. So when Watchtower condemns Jehovah's Witnesses for celebrating, Saturnalia, that's on December 25th, the first of the year. Christmas. They're going against what Jehovah God has no problem with the nations doing. No problem at all. So you Jehovah's Witnesses should know this, but you don't.
Now, going back to the clip where Jeffrey Jackson says that they are not an organization of lawyers or overly concerned with legal matters. Now think about the letter, elder's letter, that I just read the other day, where it says they are having an in-person legal seminar. Well, if they are based on faith, of what he says before that, I cut that part out, that they're a faith-based organization and not overly concerned with legal matters, then shouldn't they be having seminars, assemblies about spiritual matters instead of in-person legal seminars? And we've known from past history that their JW legal stream, they did Zoom to lawyers all over the world.
They can't say that anymore, can they?
Yeah. Now, in editing this, I remembered a video clip that I had seen the other day when I was looking for the quote of, "We're not an organization of lawyers." And I was watching the 2017 U.S. Legal Department meeting. Now, we were leaked these videos, like I said, back in 2017, and I was even watching these to see, and I heard this.
And so, too, when we consider the makeup of our department, we have brothers and sisters with varying circumstances that have come together to help us. For example, the current makeup of the U.S. Legal Department is we have 73 Bethelites assisting us there in Fishkill. We have 7 commuters, 24 remote volunteers. We have 5 Bethel consultants. And then we have 26 other temporary assistants, which includes our 11 visiting graduates from the School for Kingdom Evangelizers and Bethelites who are assisting us from other departments. We also want to take this opportunity to welcome 3 new brothers to the department, brothers. So when we consider all that, we have a grand total of 135 in the department at this time.
So they have that many working in their legal department, but they're not an organization of lawyers that have overly concerned with legal matters? Why do they need such a huge legal department?
Well, that was 6 years ago. Imagine how many more they got now, and the call still goes forth to have more lawyers.
Well, that's the letter I read. So these 35 that they have aren't enough now.
Yeah.
They need more.
And that's why we said before, we're bringing them to their knees. They can't help it because ex-members are dragging their backsides to the courts. And we are exposing them on a lawful level. And mainly has to do with the child abuse.
Yeah, exactly. So you see why a lot of us are speaking out. And that's why that clip that, Atlantis found where the quote was and why I wanted to put it in the video. But this is good because we can now cover this more thoroughly. Mm-hmm. because they say they're not an organization. Notice he says an organization of lawyers. So, and not overly concerned with legal matters. Well, like the other letter I read, then why are they asking for more lawyers and more paralegals than anyone with legal experience?
That's right. Because despite what some might think and try to draw a different conclusion, we are bringing Watchtower to their knees. We are changing the direction that they have to go. They don't have a choice. And it really doesn't matter 10 or 20, 30 years from now if those that are born into it come out and say, well, we've never had to turn in time. We will re-educate them. And I just wish more XJWs today would be doing this type of research, especially the younger ones, instead of being so involved with their podcasts, because that generation 20, 30 years from now, you young ones today are going to have to be the ones to educate them, because we're going to be gone. We're going to be gone. So you should be spending more time in study and research so that 20, 30, 40 years from now, you will be the ones that they're going to go to understand what they said back in the early 1900s.
And that's why the older generation keeps passing on their archives, their libraries, their information, all of that. Because, you know, the older generation is getting older and they want to pass this on because they know, they recognize, just like Atlantis. That's why he contacted us years ago. He recognized it was so important to keep these archives and to use it. Every time Jehovah's Witnesses change one of their things, one of their doctrines, yes, this gives us the evidence to bring it out and expose that they keep changing things. Now, if you also caught in that clip, Jeffrey Jackson says that the governing body realizes that if they give direction that isn't scriptural, basically the Jehovah's Witnesses who have a Bible and study it are going to realize that it's not right. No, I disagree, because look at how many times they've changed something just here recently in the annual meeting. For years, we were told that those who died at the flood and Sodom and Gomorrah were divinely executed and would not be in line for a resurrection into paradise. Now at the annual meeting, Splain says, oh, we don't know. Oh, did I hear that right? And then he admits that yes, this is what they used to believe. So see what Jeffrey Jackson said under oath, and he swore on his silver Bible that he would tell the truth.
Yeah.
So now, we all know, whatever the governing body says, that's the law. That's the doctrine. That's the truth. It doesn't matter if any of us catch it, because they're still going to believe it. But look at those of us that have caught these things they have said in the Bible. Look what has happened to us. We are disfellowshipped for apostasy because we are speaking out and said, you guys are a bunch of clowns. You don't even read your own Bible. You don't know what is in there. And this is BS.
Well, look at how everybody, when that 1984 reference Bible was presented to us, look at how everybody, oh, what a gift from Jehovah. Oh, Jehovah loves us. We're his chosen people because he gave us a really good resource in the form of the reference Bible. But yet, how many of you have honestly taken the time, like myself, Jane Doe, and Kim have, to look at those footnotes, to understand what Watchtower did or has done when you pick up even the older Bible? I'm not talking about their new bullshit silver sword. I'm talking about the old one, and they had to insert the word true in front of the word God. Ha Elohim, the gods.
Plural.
You don't. You just don't. And these are the things that, you know, Jane Doe and I and Kim and a small handful of XJWs are trying to communicate, because we recognize 20, 30 years down the road, this responsibility, this key to cult members' freedoms is going to be passed on to you. What are you going to do with it besides sit around and do podcasts all day long?
And the thing is in my humble opinion, I think this is worthwhile.
It is.
Why have we spent the past 10 years? If we didn't think it was worthwhile to be bringing out their history and showing their changes, we wouldn't have been doing this. And I don't mean to sound, upset or judgmental at ones that may say that, because that's their opinion. Just like this is my opinion. I honestly feel this is worthwhile. And I can vouch for that every single time I get one of these emails thanking us for bringing out stuff. Just the other day I had an email of something that we had mentioned in the last video we did together, and they said, "Oh my God, I just about fell out of my chair. I did not know they had changed that." And they thanked us.
Yeah.
They said, all these years, I just left and I didn't know, and I didn't realize until I found your channel. Look at how much they have changed. So every time I get one of those emails thanking us for the work we do, and I thank all of you who do contact us and tell us that you appreciate all the research and all this information that we get out to you, because that proves that this is worthwhile.
Yeah. And at the same time, I'm going to contextualize this a little bit further when we get to this point. Sometimes it is very discouraging, even for Kim and I. Okay, I'm going to tell you, sometimes it's very discouraging when we take time and effort to study a subject and try to get a good grasp of it and present it to you, such as religious trauma, and then another XJW couple piggyback off it on another channel and get hundreds of thousands of views. This is discouraging. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Do your own study. Do your own research and build on that. Don't piggyback off of someone else, because all that shows is that you're not taking the time to fully comprehend and grasp what's really going on.
Yeah. Now, before we say goodbye, I was talking to our daughter this morning, and she was telling me, because she works for a school in the city, and she's an interpreter for the deaf, for those of you that don't know, and they had an announcement over the loudspeaker to the entire school, and she turned to the teacher and she said, "Did I just hear that correctly?" And the teacher says, "Yeah, I think so." They were announcing that they have a new club in the school, and it's the Jesus Club. And her and the teacher were discussing this after class, of course. And the teacher was saying it's really disgusting because they're offering the kids free pizza and donuts if they come to their club. And, they're going to try to be indoctrinating and getting these kids to join, recruit them, basically into a cult.
Oh, bribe.
Bribe, yeah, it's a bribe. And we all know that's exactly what all of these cults, these religions do.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, they go knocking on the door and say, "Do you want to live forever in a paradise on earth?" Well, who wouldn't want that? And then they show a few scriptures that kind of promote their idea, and they catch people at a vulnerable moment. Because I honestly feel that the majority of the general public would be like, "Okay, I'm going to do some research on this and check you out." Well, that's when they go to YouTube or they do Google searches and find all of us. But they do catch a few at vulnerable moments. Or kids. See, it's so easy to indoctrinate these kids, especially when you're bribing them with pizza and donuts. And like Shyla brought up to the teacher, she said, "How is this a separation of church and state?" It's not. They're pushing their beliefs on these kids that are in probably a lot of anxiety right now with the war going on in the Middle East. So guess what? They can tell these kids anything, like, "Oh, you want to live forever on a paradise earth," or "God's going to come and take care of this and there's going to be peace on earth." Well, who wouldn't want that? We all want peace here on the earth. So, the teacher, she was thoroughly disgusted with what was going on, and she was going to bring it up at their next teachers meeting that, look at what you're doing to these kids. You're using fear and donuts and pizza to get them to believe what you want them to believe.
Yeah. Well, there again, religion, it's a snare and a racket. Okay, my concluding point is this. And I've mentioned this before, but it's not as discouraging to me as it may seem, because I recognize something that maybe a lot of people don't. Okay? It seems like every time I sit down and do a video about the Bible, the views drop off the table. And I get it. Most ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or those waking up only want to hear Watchtower stuff. They're disinterested in learning the control mechanism. How did this happen to you? That you got involved with a cult such as Jehovah's Witnesses that practices modern day human sacrificing through their bullshit blood policy. Because that's exactly what this is. So when I do these videos trying to expose the mechanism, there's a lot of disinterest in this community. Jane Doe sees it also, okay? But here's the thing. This is what's encouraging to me, okay? And I'm going to make the point. If you go to the channel History Valley, he did a podcast with Edward Dodge. Now, in 2 weeks, this podcast has got over 50,000 views. Would you like to know the title of the video? El and Yahweh, the two gods of Israel. Okay? Now I want you to pay attention, if you're so inclined, when you get around the 34-minute mark, pay attention to what Edward Dodge says. He says that the Yahweh cult was very, very small, because the whole nation of Israel was worshiping multiple gods. Okay? Now bear this in mind, how small the Yahweh cult was. Because when you take that name Yahweh and convert it to Jehovah, Jehovah's Witnesses today are minuscule compared to the world of Christianity. All Watchtower did was take an old, obscure religion, the Yahwists, convert the name to Jehovah, and then all of a sudden, Jehovah's Witnesses are now the fastest growing religion. We have the truth. You guys are doing the same thing that those Yahwists did way back in Israel. But see, there's a very important thing about this video. They're trying to identify how the name El, the chief Canaanite god that Abraham sacrificed to, El, Elohim, El Shaddai, all those names have been changed to create the facade that Israel only ever worshiped the one true God in heaven. It's not true. It's not true. Okay? So please go and watch that and pay attention, because 5-6 years ago I did a video based on the research that I had done led me to that same conclusion. And it's not a far-fetched idea that God would change his name, or that men would try to imply that Jesus is the same as the God in the Old Testament. Jesus is Jehovah. Jesus is Yahweh. And before Yahweh, it was El.
Well, a lot of those ancient cultures, you start watching these documentaries and you can see that it was the same God with the same attributes.
Yeah.
They only changed the name down through the centuries.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that these ancient gods from like Sumeria and Babylon and some of these others actually transformed into Egyptian gods. And you read the same thing. They had the same attributes. And then it kind of branched off. The Norse. the Brits, I mean, all of these ancient cultures, the Gauls, the Druids, it was the same God all through the history. Did the same thing, and all these stories were basically the same. They just changed a few little details. And I heard, parts of this video that he's talking about while I was baking yesterday, and it's like, oh yeah, they make some really good points.
Yeah. And the other video, okay, it's from the channel Gnostic Informant. The title of the channel is Gnostic Informant. The title of the video is Oldest Origins of Biblical Yahweh Are Shocking. But get this, in 1 month, he's got 185,000 views. So I can see where the world at large finds these topics extremely interesting and enlightening. But if I were to do this video, why is it that ex-members from a cult like Jehovahism do not find these topics interesting? Inquiring minds want to know. That's why I spend so much time in studying and researching the Bible, and I know how it came together, and how these religious cults stole ideologies from surrounding religions and incorporated it, and they say, we worship the only true God, Yahweh, we are his chosen people, even though the Bible plainly says that Yahweh came to despise his inheritance. Just like Jeffrey Jackson said, you Jehovah's Witnesses have got the Bible, you should know this, but you don't. But hey, what do I know?
Yeah, and to me, that was like a drop the jaw or drop the mic moment when he said that. And it's like, oh my God, that was just back to 2014, 2015, and now what, 7 years later? They've done a total 180. Well, how many Jehovah's Witnesses spoke up and said, wait a minute, you're not right, this isn't scriptural? But and how many are even going to catch when they watch the annual meeting where Splain said it wasn't scriptural? How many is that going to wake up? So.
But hey, what do we know?
Right? So thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and your comments and cards and emails and phone calls. We really appreciate it. And thanks again, Atlantis. You are the best. And he is posting all the elders' letters that we receive on JehovahWitness.com. And I believe he's got this clip, the clip I showed also. So, just check out that forum, and it's really great because they have a lot of good information and a lot of posters.
Your true source of ex-Jehovah Witness information, JehovahWitness.com.
Yeah, and they always try to keep up to date with the latest information and all of that. And like I said, that's where Atlantis posts all of these elders' letters. And I did put the link to his post on JWN. We call it JWN because years ago it used to be JehovahWitness.net. So we just call it JWN. But anyway, the elders' letters that I read, I'm going to start putting the link to the JWN post so that you can grab the letters, because he uses several different sites to host copies of the elders' letters. And thank you to all you PMO elders who are sharing all this information. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we appreciate all of you, and we appreciate you watching and the love and support that you help us with. So you all have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.